And if you could share to your Facebook, that would be great.
Sure.
All right. Hello, hello, hello.
Who is the baddest of them all? I am.
Started now. I want to start at the beginning, and I don't know how to make it start at the beginning. I'll play the other one.
Head up, beautiful. Where you been? I haven't seen you in a while. You look amazing, so breathtaking. I must admit that I really miss your smile. In all of the world, there's only one of you. Don't sell yourself short, my sister. You're wonderful. Look in the mirror, who do you see? I see a beautiful queen staring right back at me. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the flyest of them all? I am.
Hi! Debut! Bah, 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 bah. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Again, this is another edition of BBP Live at 8:45. I am so very excited and honored. I have an amazing guest for you this evening. Woo, you all are in for a treat. So, those of you who have been following me for a while, you probably have heard me mention Mirror Mirror. It's something that I've been working for a very long time to turn into a song. And lately I have been obsessing over AI. So what you just heard, I typed the lyrics into an AI platform and it made a song for me. Listen, you better get AI or die because this game is over. It's AI from here on out. So I am so very honored and excited to introduce to some and present to others Attorney Mary Hart.
Hello, Karana. How are you?
I am outstanding. I am so excited tonight. I'm going to try to not fan out, because
Well, I love your song. That's
thank
awesome.
you.
How smart of you to put it to AI and get them to do the music. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I've been trying for like 10 years to get people to do it for me, and to no avail.
You don't need people.
I
Scary.
don't
Scary.
people. Yeah. Yes. Now I know that I can't do any justice to your bio. Can you give us a little bit of an intro and tell people who Mary Hart is?
Sure. So Mary Hart is my name, and I currently live in Asheville, North Carolina. I am a retired attorney. I'm still licensed, but not practicing. I've been an attorney since 1991, so that's a little scary, 34 years. Started out as an estate planning attorney and then added on over the years business, tax, and real estate, self-directed IRAs, all that real estate investing type of stuff. I've been a real estate investor for about 22 years. I've been a private lender for about 22 years. And at the end of last year, I turned my private lending hobby into a rip-roaring business called Fair Oaks Funding and brought on a couple of employees. And so now I am full-time in that while I'm trying to remodel some properties and move out of some other houses. And so it's a very busy life right now, but a great one.
Oh man, that is a mouthful. And here I am caught with my proverbial pants down, digging for my bubbles. I should be blowing bubbles.
Oh no. Well, we'll just pretend we see them. That's okay.
That is a lot. Oh my gosh. Now, I don't even know where to start. Okay. You were a so licensed but not practicing attorney, real estate investor, which is how we met.
Right.
And
we met at the, I got a shameless plug for my jacket, Sweetheart Women in Real Estate Mastermind. Yeah.
So when you all see me
Wendy
with
Sweet
jacket with the heart in the house, she is right. the heart half of Sweetheart. Wendy Sweet, Mary Hart, Sweetheart.
Our names just sort of worked out well, so that was pretty cool.
Wow. So well. I love it. I love it. I got to get Wendy on here one day. She is amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wendy's awesome. She's a great woman. Great woman.
Yes, is. Now, one thing I want to start with, since a segue from the mirror, when we did the Sweetheart Retreat, you had the most incredible thing. And it was not only, it was a Sweetheart Women in Real Estate Retreat, but it was not, it was so much more
Yeah.
than just that. You know, we got our lives. I mean, oh,
It's a pretty powerful experience when you get a room full of 25 or 30 women and everybody's telling their story and helping each other and asking for help. And, we've had people say it was just transformative, changed their life, changed their businesses, changed their marriages, changed their relationship with their children. And it's just, when you get a collective experience of 25 or 30 women, it's amazing what you can learn from each other.
yes.
So pretty cool.
Well, one of the things that will always stay with me that I learned from you is you have a practice, a self-love practice that you do. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I think what you're talking about is my ultimate love letter that I talk about. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like I said earlier, I started out as an estate planning attorney. And so I've represented thousands, literally thousands of couples and families in their estate plans over the years. And what I came to learn is that it's not the stuff you leave your family that's really the biggest love letter or even the biggest legacy. It's getting prepared for your death or disability and setting things up in a way that makes it easier for your family so that they can grieve naturally without having to deal with as much stress with you're not having a will or not knowing what your assets are, where they are, how you change credit cards, stop credit cards, anything like that. So I started realizing that the act of putting together your estate planning documents and putting together a notebook with all of the information that your family would need is probably truly the ultimate love letter to your family. Just make it as easy for them as possible. And if it's not your family, maybe it's your favorite charity, your other loved ones, whatever it is. But I started calling it your ultimate love letter, gosh, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And it actually came because I had a wonderful person named Jamie King, if she ever watches this, who was doing my marketing for my law firm. It was called the Hart Law Group. And she did a Valentine's marketing piece and said, write your ultimate love letter. And she had these beautiful red cowboy boots because we were known as the cowgirls of Hart Law. We all wore cowboy boots. We were all women in the law firm. And anyway, so that when she wrote that marketing piece, I'm like, oh my God, I love it. And so I've been calling it your ultimate love letter ever since. So
wonderful. I love that. And can you give us an idea of some of the things that you would put in the love letter that one would, how would one go about writing it?
So it's really two components. It's setting up your estate planning documents that make the process easier for your family. Let's use death. It could also be in disability. But if you were to die, if you die without a will, for instance, the state legislature has created a will for you. May not be what you like. It may not be what your family thinks should happen. Whoever gets appointed as your executor, who will the race to the courthouse steps to become your executor, they will have to post a bond out of their own pocket. It just makes it a lot more cumbersome than if you just took the time to do a will or a trust that says exactly what you want to have happen when you die, exactly who you want to manage everything, exactly who gets what, how they get it, all these things. So those documents, they're 4 or 5 documents that I think are key. And I think everybody who turns 18 and over, everybody should have these documents. It's documents that deal with what happens if you're alive but not able to make your own decisions. So that is your healthcare power of attorney, who makes your healthcare decisions for you if you can't. Your durable power of attorney, which is for everything but healthcare, who makes all those decisions for you if you can't. And if you think about everything you decide or take care of every day, from the time you put your feet on the floor in the morning to the time you go to bed, that's a lot of decisions. Who signs the checks, who pays the bills, who schedules the appointments, all that kind of thing. So you've got 2 powers of attorney. You may want a living will, which is a declaration of a desire for a natural death. It means pull the plug, don't keep me alive artificially. So that's an important one. And then your will or a trust. So there are a basic set of documents that I think everybody over 18 should have that make things easy. And then the second piece of the love letter is, and I realized this after many years, those documents weren't enough because I could have the most beautiful estate planning documents in the world. But if I died or became disabled and nobody knew what was in my head, how would they even know where to start? So like in my family, I do most of the bills and manage everything that way. My husband's retired. So if something happens to me, where is that information? What bills get paid? I'm a real estate investor, all these different real estate properties. I have a lending company, all these different loans. What are they? Who pays the bills? Who do I owe? What accounts do the property taxes come out? What's on auto pay? What's not? What credit cards do I have? How do people shut these things down? How do they know what bills to pay? How do they know, what to sell? All that. So there's a whole plethora of information that I think you need to give to your loved ones so that they could basically step in your head. If you're the one who manages anything, if you weren't doing it, who would do it? And how do they find that information to know how to do it? So those are the two pieces to me of your ultimate love letter, is doing the documents, having those in place, making sure if you use a trust, you actually put assets in the trust and fund it. And then have your workbook, your notebook, whatever you want to call it, whether it's digital or physical or both, with all the information that your executor, your trustee, your loved ones would need to go forward with all those decisions that were in your head and now are not in your head anymore.
Nice. I'm taking notes. I'm adding things on the Facebook comments so that we can go back and easily find this. So the documents and
the notebook of all the information that people need to know how to manage all the things you manage. Even if all it is, you're a stay-at-home person and you take care of children, whether you're a man or a woman, but you still have decisions to make. Like, I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years, and my husband at the time had no idea who the kid's pediatrician was, who the dentist was. So something happened, we got divorced. He was calling me, well, who's the doctor? Well, how do I reach them? Well, what if we were still married, but I was disabled or deceased? He wouldn't even know where to go for his kids' doctor's records, So anything that's in your head that the other family members don't know, that they might need to know if you couldn't make a decision, that should go in that notebook. Everything from, what's my social security number? Do I have a global entry card for travel? What are my credit cards? What are the passwords, or how do you get into my password app? Because somebody might have to know how to get into your online banking and take care of your, shutting down things. There's so much information, but if we literally stop to think, if you jotted down every day, every time you did an action or made a decision that you're the only one who knows what's going on, and you wrote that list, how long would that list be? For me, it would be miles long, because we have our different roles, and I take care of one piece, my husband take care of the other piece. So the things that he needs to do for me is write down, like, how do you take care of the yard? How do you plant the flowers? He does all the house maintenance. How do you do all that? I don't know how to do all that. Or who would I call? If the faucet went out, who do I call? Who's our plumber? Who's our this or that? So, we all have our roles. When you're in a relationship or a family, not everybody knows everything. So write it down as best as you can to make it easier for people.
That is so important. I have been a part of situations where, man, you don't know where anything is at. You're struggling to find documents. Where's the insurance? Did they have insurance? How much insurance did they have? Who's the policy with? Where do they bank? What are the accounts? All the things.
Even like my mom, when my mom got cancer and when she was sick before her death, she wrote a whole list, which helped me. Even, I had done her estate plan, so I knew the documents, but I didn't realize she still had a subscription to the local newspaper, and I had to cancel. I didn't know she was a USAA insurance person. There were so many things I didn't know. I knew basically her assets and her estate plan because I'd done that, but all the little stuff that I didn't know what charities she donated to and what she, what I needed to look out for. So it was really helpful to have that list. Don't forget to cancel this and call this advisor and do this. And that was just helpful to know. And I think about it with my kids and my husband, because I have so many different real estate investments and this lending company that's all in my head if I don't write it down. My kids, multiple properties, multiple storage units, nobody would have a clue what to do if I don't write it all down on a piece of paper. And so I've started it, and it's an ongoing work of progress. I just got 2 new storage units. Well, nobody knows about them, where they are, but me. I better write them down on my list. Something happens to me, it's got, 2 warehouses full of furniture that need to get sold or put in the next property or whatever. Nobody even knows that exists because I just did it.
Wow.
Who knows? What if I died? We're selling a house on Friday. Well, if I don't put that information in like a tax file, how does anybody know where to find the HUD to give to the CPA to calculate capital gains for the next tax year or anything? I mean, nobody would know that. It's all in my head. I do it all, right? So I have to figure that stuff out and put it down. What does somebody need to know? I feel like I'm beating a dead horse now, because you get the gist of it, right? It's a lot more than you think it is.
Each time you spoke, you mentioned something different that most people wouldn't think of. Yeah. Charities, like who thinks of things like that? Yeah. You know,
and even like a big one people don't realize is that, say on your Facebook account, you're on Facebook Live. On Facebook, you can create your legacy contact. Has the power to either shut down your Facebook account or make it a memorial page. And if you don't have someone designated, it can be really difficult to even just shut down a Facebook page.
Yes.
Right? Who has access to your Apple, your photos?
Yep.
Yeah. There are cases where, you know, a young adult, 20s, died, and every single picture that man had was on his phone, and his parents couldn't access it because Apple said they didn't have authority. They didn't have authority. They lost every picture that he ever took of his life because they couldn't access his Apple account. You know, so things like that, just people need to know how to do that.
Yes. So you all, I hope you're taking notes. Great job. Osner Doc said he just had this discussion with his youngest son who lives with him. And that is good. Too often we don't want to, it's like we're acknowledging death, but It's inevitable. It may happen tomorrow or it may happen in 50 years, but we don't know. So it's better to be ready and prepared.
Yes, it is. And it's a hard conversation to have. But when I had clients that didn't want to talk about it, I would say it's really not so much about the death. It's so much about you maintaining control. Do you want to be in control of your life if you become disabled or you die? Do you want to be in control of your death? Because if you don't take that step, you're not in control. And if you do take those steps, but you don't let anybody know about them, you may still not be in control because people don't know where your documents are or what they need to do. And I just think it's the nicest gift you can give your loved ones is to get this stuff put together. And it's not easy and it's not free. But for me, I think it's the best Christmas gift you can give your kids. Do your estate plan. Sorry, guys, you're not getting much for Christmas this year. We bought you an estate plan, you know. And speaking of that, when my oldest child turned 18, even though I taught this stuff all over the country for many years before he turned 18, even before he was born, he had his wisdom teeth removed on his 18th birthday. And I went into the dentist's office and I started signing paperwork for him. And they're like, you can't sign that paperwork. I'm like, well, no, I'm the mom. Like, well, he's 18. And I'm like, oh my gosh, today's his birthday. You're right. As of today, I cannot sign a thing for him. Wow. So when he woke up from anesthesia, he had an estate plan ready for him to review. So I did a will and all the powers of attorney. And then I have 3 sons, and on each one's 18th birthday, they got an estate plan, a very simple one, for their 18th birthday. And then as they got into their, mid to late 20s, we converted that simple will to a revocable living trust because they had started to accumulate some assets that they inherited. And so we just, I said, I'm not following in that mistake again. So they now have their estate plan. My oldest son just got married, so we revised it to include his wife. And I just think it's such an important thing. And how embarrassed would I be if I died and didn't have my own stuff together, because I preach it all the time.
Yes.
I got to get my stuff together.
Can you talk about that progression? You went from when he turned 18 to you say you created the will.
Yeah. So when he turned 18, when each of them turned 18, I did a very simple estate plan for them because I was an estate planning attorney. So it was easy. I just did it, on my own computer. I did a very simple will. I asked them what they'd want. And they said, well, I'd just leave it to my brothers. And if my brothers weren't alive, I'd leave it back to my parents. So I said, anything they had, whatever it was when they died, could be $1, could be $1 million, didn't matter. It was going to go to their brothers. No trust, no nothing. It was just very, very, very simple because they didn't have much at the time. Then as they got older and they inherited some assets from their grandparents and they started accumulating their own savings, and they were moving from different states to states and different probate laws and all that, I thought, I don't think they're going to want to have to go through probate when they die, their estate. It's just a pain in the rear end. And in many states, it's really a pain. So I asked them, how would you feel if we switched from a will to a revocable living trust? Now, you still do have a will, but all the important provisions are in your trust, and you title your assets in the name of your trust. So what that means is that when, like, let's take my oldest son, if he were to die, we don't have to go to court to probate his estate. We just read the trust document. I happen to be the trustee, although he could remove me at any time. and I just read the trust. Okay, what did he want? And I could finalize that in an hour if I needed to. It's just very simple. It's private. It's not a public thing. There's no court action. It's just very easy. The trust says give it to his brothers. I give it to his brothers. It's very, very simple. Or give it to his wife or whatever it says right now. And so as they started to accumulate assets and their lives got a little bit more complicated, I just decided, hey guys, let's switch you over to this probate avoidance type of document. So they have their revocable living trust. We've named all their assets except their IRAs into that. We've titled them in the name of that trust. And so now they sleep well at night knowing if something were to happen, I'm already the trustee and I would just manage it. And if I'm not the trustee, then there are successors. The child himself becomes the next trustee and then his brothers after that. And it would just be an easy administration, relatively speaking. It doesn't matter whether they're in Pennsylvania or Florida or North Carolina, it doesn't matter. The state no longer matters because we're not probating anything. And the probate process is tedious. It can be
it's expensive.
It can be very expensive, yes. And so we just decided it was time. And everybody's journey in that timeline is going to be different. Some people will say their stuff stays so simple they never need a revocable living trust. Maybe they have everything in joint names with their spouse, and when they die, their spouse inherits it all. Now what happens when the spouse dies and there's not a joint owner though, right? It's going to go through probate. Whether they have a will or not, if anything is in their separate name when they die, it will go through probate. But the way to take it out of probate, either put it in a trust, add a joint owner with a right of survivorship, or add a designated beneficiary, like certain things like life insurance, retirement benefits, certain types of bank and stock accounts can have named beneficiaries. So if you die, that asset would pass directly to that beneficiary. So if you don't have a joint owner with a right of survivorship, meaning they get it just because they survived you, if you don't have that, or it's not in a trust, or you don't have a designated beneficiary, so it's something sitting there in your separate name, when you die, it will go through probate in the state in which you live when you die. If it's real property, it goes through probate in the state in which it's located. So if I have property in 4 or 5 different states. If they were not in either an LLC that's in my trust or not directly in my trust, when I died, those assets would have to be probated in all 5 states. I'd have 5 probate actions, right? Mm-hmm. So my personal real estate is just directly in my revocable living trust. My real estate investments are in LLCs, and those LLCs are owned by my trust. And so they all avoid probate everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean?
Yes.
So,
Now, one thing that caught my attention, you said except the IRAs. Now, why would that not be something to add into the trust?
Because IRA stands for individual retirement account. It has to be owned by an individual. So you can name a trust as a beneficiary. And it used to be we did that all the time. But when they got rid of the stretch out and now everything has to be paid out in 10 years to most beneficiaries if they're not a spouse, we lost some of the benefit of using the trust. And so now we have to decide if it's worth it to name the trust as the beneficiary or just give it directly to an individual beneficiary or a charity. And that is a decision it's complex. It needs to be made with an advisor. That's really not a DIY kind of decision. Mm-hmm. Because the rules, the IRS rules are complex in those trust and IRA situations.
Got it. And you would recommend a tax attorney for that?
Just an estate planning attorney. A good estate planning attorney should be able to do it. I mean, they should know enough about tax and IRAs to make that decision with you. So some tax attorneys don't know anything about estate plans. They just do income tax work, for instance. Estate planning attorneys know estate and gift tax and certain aspects of income taxes when it comes to naming beneficiaries and things like that. So there should be a good estate planning attorney in your area that knows it all. But I would ask that question, how familiar are you with naming trusts as the beneficiary of IRAs?
Great.
Like, then you go on to the next one.
Right. So when selecting, and that's a great point, when selecting an estate planning attorney, what are some other things that you need to ask or to look for,
Sure.
Competencies?
Well, I always think it's like, how do you choose any professional? How do you choose your cardiologist? You don't just go to any old person. You look for a cardiologist that specializes in whatever you need help with, right? If you're looking for a plumber, you want someone who maybe is not just a handyman. If you've got a very complex plumbing job, you want a plumber who has experience with that. So what I think is you need to maybe call 1, 2, or 3 estate planning attorneys and ask them what their experience is with families with your net worth. Or if you have, a whole bunch of real estate holdings, what, real estate investments, or you're part of syndications, or what's your situation, and ask that attorney what their experience is dealing with estate plans for people of your net worth, people of your types of assets that you have. If you have complex family dynamics, how can they, like one child might be in the family business and the others aren't. Are they familiar with how to set things up to be fair, but not necessarily equal, So I just ask the question like you would any other professional, what's important to you? And do they have experience dealing with that type of thing?
Nice. So have some clarity on what's important to you.
Right.
Or you reach out to a professional and
yes.
Ask them their experience and verify.
Yeah, and verify. And the other thing that I would say, and I saw this a lot, is people tend to, nobody likes to pay lawyers. I don't even like to pay lawyers, and I am a lawyer. But don't go for the cheapest lawyer. Don't call up a real estate lawyer who says, yeah, I can throw together a will for you. They don't know what they're doing. Law is very specialized. And so you need to find someone who does whatever's you need on a regular basis, not an occasional once every 5 years, they'll throw a will together for a family member, right? Pay the extra if you have to, but get somebody who knows what they're doing in that area, because it involves tax law, it involves family law, it involves all kinds of issues that real estate laws, all kinds of issues that people need to make sure they're going to a competent attorney to do this type of plan.
Yes, that's good stuff. All right. Now, is there any other component that is that we haven't mentioned that someone should know when it comes to their estate planning?
Well, the estate planning is very varied depending on what a person's needs are. So it's really, I literally teach estate planning workshops for 2 solid 8-hour days. So we do not have time to get into everything on these estate plans. But I think the most important thing is know what you own, how it is titled. Is it in your name? Is it in your name and a spouse? Is it with the right of survivorship or not? Know how you own it. Know what you want to have happen if you were to become disabled or deceased. Have those goals in mind, and then find a competent estate planning attorney that you can go have a 2-hour consultation with and decide on a game plan.
Now, I'm in real estate. I am a broker in a couple different states. Mm-hmm. Is there a standard way to title properties that you would mention, that the bare minimum for anybody buying real estate in a personal purchase?
So, classic lawyer answer, it really depends on what your goals are. And it depends sometimes what state you're in. For instance, in North Carolina, a husband and wife who own real property together own it a certain way called tenancy by the entirety, which has beefed up creditor protection for husband and wife, right? Mm-hmm. So if you go in to buy a deed, if we said, okay, Frank and Mary Hart as tenants in common, I just destroyed some extra creditor protection. If I just said Frank and Mary as husband and wife, it's automatically tenancy by the entirety. So it's impossible for me to give a blanket answer to that question, because every state's going to be different. Everybody's situation is going to be different. I think the biggest thing is to make sure that when you are having anything titled, let's say you're buying a piece of property, talk to the closing attorney about the different options and the ways it could be titled and what the pros and cons are of that. For instance, in investment real estate, I don't ever own my investment real estate in my individual name. It's too much of a risk for liability, right? So am I going to put it in a land trust, or am I going to put it in an LLC? For me, I have chosen to do the LLC route because I have high equity in my properties, and I don't want creditors having access to that willy-nilly. And a land trust provides me no creditor protection whatsoever. It gives me some anonymity, and I can name my LLC as the beneficiary of the land trust, and that may help. But whatever that land trust owns, if there's equity in it, it's up for grabs if the land trust gets sued and they lose, right? The trust loses. So my one thing is probably don't ever put your investment real estate in your individual name. If you use a land trust, don't ever name yourself individually as a beneficiary. Use an LLC. The most likely thing. But basically, I think that it's everybody's situation is so different. What you own, what you want to have happen with it, what state you live in. And so it probably makes sense to have an attorney help you decide how to title something. At a minimum, ask the different ways you can title something and the pros and cons of each one, and make the decision that fits right for your circumstances. Yes. Because they have consequences, right? The way they're titled. For instance, if my husband Frank and I own a piece of property as joint tenants with the right of survivorship, or as tenants by the entirety, if I died, it automatically passes to him without probate. But if we own it and the deed says tenants in common, then my half goes through my will, if I have it, and his half that goes through his will, and now we're both in probate, right? If I own just a life estate, then when I die, my life estate is extinguished, and whoever I've named as the remainder beneficiary inherits automatically. So there are different consequences to different titling, and you have to find out what those are and pick the one that meets your goals.
Right. And one thing that I am now hyper aware of, is I have not really ever guided a client to have more interaction with the closing attorney.
Yeah. People don't think about it. Agents don't think about it, because we're sort of myopic when you're in a closing. We're thinking about the closing. We're thinking about, is the clean title coming into the closing, right? Is the contract the way it should be? All these things. But we're not thinking about, well, what happens once they close on this property and somebody dies or becomes disabled? That's just down in the future. So people don't think about it. We should. Everybody should think about it when they buy something. Well, how do I want to title it? And very well-meaning closing agents, closing attorneys, title companies, whatever, can sometimes just make assumptions. Sometimes they don't even ask. They just do a deed the way they think it should be done. Same thing when you open up bank accounts. Can't tell you how many clients I had thought they owned a bank account one way, and they didn't, because the person who opened the account for them just checked the box like, oh, this is tenants in common, or it's joint with the right of survivorship, without even asking the person opening the account. They just made a decision because it was easier, right? And so I think we all have a responsibility to ourselves to take control over the knowledge of how we own things and how they pass at death, so that we know that our goals and our desires will be carried out appropriately based on the way we own things at death, and the way our documents are set up to leave things, at death. So it's a very important topic. I think it's one of the biggest, the most important topics in an estate plan, is understanding how assets pass at death. I think it's the biggest misconception that people have. And they don't realize that anything that's in your separate name is going to go through probate. And if you don't have a will, it goes to whomever the state legislature says gets it. Nothing goes in trust. Nothing goes to charity. Kid turns 18, they get it, that kind of thing. And so I think it behooves us all to advocate for ourselves and learn what we need to learn, so that our goals will be effectuated if we become deceased or disabled. But it's no fun. It's no fun. So you have to proactively seek out that information, or seek out the professionals who can help you with that. I mean, it's one of the reasons I teach about this stuff all over the country, even though I'm not practicing anymore. I don't get any business out of it. I just want people to know, because I've seen too many things go totally awry, and I know it was not the person's intention, but they didn't know what they didn't know, right? We don't know what we don't know. So seek out information and then make the decision that's right for you.
For sure. Now, are you able to give the difference between revocable and irrevocable trusts?
Sure. It's basically just like it sounds. So revocable trust means that you can revoke it, tear it up, whatever you want to do. You can change it. You can put assets in it. You can take assets out of it. You can be the trustee and control it. And it's ignored for tax purposes. So it just goes on all your income and expenses go on your regular 1040 tax return. The trust is ignored for all of that. So we use that a lot for like estate planning, where we like a lot of flexibility. We're just trying to take it out of our individual name so that we avoid probate, or we want to make that easy transition. An irrevocable trust, on the other hand, is just what it sounds like. It's irrevocable. Once you set it up, you cannot change it without court order, which is very complicated. You can't always get that court order. They are usually set up for different purposes. They're usually set up as a way to remove assets from one's estate for estate tax purposes, gift tax purposes. creditor protection purposes. So there's usually a very specialized reason to do an irrevocable trust. Most of us don't need an irrevocable trust unless we have a certain level of net worth, or we want to start gifting assets to our kids so that it's out of our estate when we die. Then we might siphon that off slowly to irrevocable trust so that when I die, anything I've irrevocably given away is not listed in my list of assets to determine whether I have to pay estate taxes on them. So you're going to use an irrevocable trust in some circumstances if it meets your goals, but most of us, if we're just doing garden variety estate plans, are going to do revocable trusts so that we can change them, amend them as circumstances change, we can control them. In most states, you cannot be the trustee of your own irrevocable trust. Or even a beneficiary. There are some states that allow you to be a permissible beneficiary, meaning you can ask for money and the trustee can say yes or no, but you can't be your own trustee, and usually neither can your spouse. So it's there are very specific purposes for those types of trusts.
Okay. Now, would that be what most of us have heard of, like trust fund baby, where a person hits a certain age and then they start to draw money on their...
Yeah, usually a trust fund baby means that a parent has died and left assets in a trust, and that trust was probably revocable during the parent's lifetime. But when they died, that trust flipped a switch and became irrevocable, meaning the beneficiary can't change it, so that the parent's wishes are set in stone at the moment of death, cannot be changed after that. And so those trusts can be written any way you want. But a very common example would be to say, like, I leave my estate in equal shares to my 3 kids in trust. Each kid has their own trust. The trustee, let's just pick one, my husband, my brother, whatever. The trustee can distribute income and principal to each child as follows, blah, blah, blah. And when that child is 25, they get a third of it. When they're 30, they get half of the balance. When they're 35, it terminates and they can have the rest of it. However you want to do it. There are trusts that, and I'm a beneficiary of one of those right now on purpose. I told my parents to do this, I got assets left to me in trust for my life. Now I get the income from that trust. I can be the trustee of that trust, but I can only get principal out for very narrow reasons, which are perfectly fine. There's plenty of flexibility. But anything in that trust when I die passes to my kids without being included in my estate for estate tax purposes. So and as big as I grow it. So let's say if my mom died, left me $1 million, we'll make up numbers, left me $1 million in a trust, and I lived for another 30 years and I grew that trust to $5 million. When I die, that $5 million would go to my kids without any estate taxes at all. You see? So we call those sort of dynasty trusts. They stay in trust for multiple generations, so we're avoiding transfer taxes at different generations. Now there's a downside. We don't get a jump up in tax basis every time a generation dies. So when we go to sell an asset, we might have more capital gains taxes than we would have if we'd gotten a step up in basis. And I don't know if people are familiar with that, but normally when someone dies, whatever tax basis they have in the property, and I'll give you an example in a minute, jumps up to whatever that property is worth at the date of death. So if I bought a house for $100,000, that's my basis in that property. Now let's say it's not my personal residence. Let's say it's an investment property. And if I died, it was worth $500,000, my tax basis would jump up to $500,000. So if my kids sold it the next day for $500,000, they would have no capital gains tax because the tax basis would be equal to the sales price. Whereas if I had sold it during my life, my basis was $100,000 and I sold it for $500,000, I'd owe capital gains taxes on $400,000 worth of profit. See the difference? So yeah. If we leave something outright to someone, if it's included in our list of assets for estate tax purposes, it will get a step up in basis at our death to whatever the property is worth on the date of our death, whatever the account's worth, whatever the real estate's worth, whatever the car is worth, whatever it is. But if we transfer something to an irrevocable trust, whether it's let's say when my mom died and it went into trust for me, it got a step up in basis at my mom's death. But let's take my example. Let's say it was $1 million when my mom died. That became the tax basis. But if I grow that irrevocable trust to $5 million, the tax basis does not jump up to $5 million when I die. It stays at $1 million. So if the trust or my kids sells those assets at $5 million, they're going to have $4 million worth of capital gains. But capital gains taxes max out at 20% and estate taxes max out at 45%. I'd rather my kids pay 20% on the capital gains than 45% on potentially the entire asset, or on the $4 million in my example, right? So there's tax planning as part of the estate plan. We look at it and we go, well, what's going to be more beneficial for the beneficiary to get a step up in income tax basis if they sell it, reduce the capital gains, or is it better to keep the basis low, but have it pass to multiple generations in a trust that's not subject to estate taxes? That's very dependent on the actual net worth of the client, what the tax laws are, what the children's situation is. So it's not, there's no black or white answer. It's just, it's not an either or. You have to look at your situation and talk to a professional about it.
Mind is blown.
You asked the question. Go down these rabbit holes, but I want people to, you won't know the answers. You won't even remember this. You might even not remember this conversation. But if you do remember this conversation, you might think, wait a minute, that's an issue that I know it's an issue. I can't tell you what the answer is, but I remember there was a discussion. So what I want people to do is be able to issue spot and then say to the professional, is it better for me to use this type of trust or that type of trust, or to get an increase in basis, or to avoid capital gains? Let's strategize here and pick the right path for my particular situation.
Yes.
My net worth, my income, my kids' income, blah, blah, blah.
Most people don't know what they don't know. So, well, none of us don't know what we don't know. So I never heard of basis, and I have a trust. I need to go. Yeah. That was not a term that I remember ever being.
Nobody thinks about it unless they're an investor that buys and sells assets and has to deal with tax basis. Like on that investment property, people who are familiar with 1031 exchanges, if I have that $100,000 investment property that's now worth 500 and I sold it, I'd have to pay capital gains taxes on that $400,000, right? But if I used a 1031 exchange and I rolled it into another property that qualified, I wouldn't pay any capital gains taxes when I bought the second property, but that low $100,000 basis transfers over into the new house. So every time I roll it, that low basis keeps carrying over. And so one day,
the original basis?
The original basis keeps carrying over in those 1031 exchanges. So one day, if I sell it while I'm alive, I'm going to pay a lot of capital gains taxes. But on the other hand, if I hold that property long enough and I die with it, then it's going to get a step up in basis. So those 1031s, that deferred capital gains will be wiped out by my death. So there are all these different factors that people need to consider, and they need to talk to a really competent professional who can issue spot and help you work through, well, what's best for my particular situation? Because these types of questions are not DIY, do it yourself, unless you really have learned a lot and you've studied a lot. I mean, I've had 30 plus years as an attorney to learn all this, and I'm an investor, so I've learned it myself. And I came from a family of, investors. And so I was an economics major. So I've learned all these things. I'm 62 years old. I've had a lot of time to learn all this, right? But I didn't know it when I was 30. Well, maybe 30 because I was already a lawyer, but maybe not in my 20s. Somebody needed to teach me. And if parents aren't teaching, school systems certainly aren't teaching this stuff.
They certainly are not.
Which they should. We should have some life skills classes that include financial literacy. And my friend Ashley Cash in Texas is trying hard to change the laws in Texas to make that happen for K through 12 education. And God bless her. It was a thought that occurred to me, but I did not have time to pursue it. But it's very important. So anybody out there that's in the education space, start advocating for financial literacy starting in kindergarten.
For sure. Oh, man. Wait a minute. I think we have a question. There's a bunch of questions on YouTube. I'm sorry, guys. Great information. We want to talk about it. It's never necessary. Okay, Leanne. I see you, Leanne. Mostly comments. They're really feeling the conversation, Mary. Oh my goodness.
Nobody's going to be able to sleep tonight because everybody's going to be freaked out about their estate plan.
I hope you guys are taking notes and go back and watch this over and over and over again. It'll be on YouTube and Facebook forever. That's why I do it through this platform. So it's in multiple places. You can share it. Everybody needs to know this stuff. We all have that appointment, but we don't know when it's coming. So make sure number one, you get those documents and you have a notebook with detailed instructions on the who, what, where, when, how.
Yep.
All of the things.
Down to the littlest detail, things you wouldn't think about.
Littlest detail. And go in your Facebook accounts and set up that legacy instruction as well. If you want your account to be memorialized, whatever the thing is that you want, go and do all of these things before you're not able to do it.
And if you've buried money in a glass jar or metal pipe in your backyard, you better give people some coordinates how to dig it up and let them know it's there. Because I know of people literally that the parents had buried money. They never told anybody. They died and that money was gone forever because nobody could find it.
Yes. Now, one of the things that, and I want to make a hard pivot here because I don't want to waste too much time. I want to talk about you. If everybody who knows me knows that I'm really big into resets. You did a major reset. You retired from a long, great legal career, and now you are in funding, Fair Oaks funding. Most people, and this wasn't just a hard transition for you. You gradually worked for 20 plus years in real estate investing. And so it wasn't just I want to be clear, this wasn't just let me be a funder now. So, but can you talk about that transition for you at this stage in your life when, you could just be on a beach somewhere and retire?
I probably should. I think my husband would like that, but I think I'm too ADD and too excitable to just sit around on a beach. But so I became an accidental private lender back in about 2003 when somebody asked me to loan on a building, an investment property, and I happened to have some cash sitting around in an account, like $50,000 or something that I just wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And I was like, sure, I can do that. I knew nothing about it other than as a lawyer. Like I had drafted loan documents, but I'd never been a lender or anything like that. So I did a loan and then people found out I did it. And so I never advertised it, but people would ask me to do it. So over about the last 21 years, I don't know, I did a number of millions of dollars of loans over 20 years, just as a hobby. Like people would just ask me, never advertised, never thought about it. I used my lines of credit. I got lines of credit on some of my investment properties and I would basically arbitrage by, say, loaning to a borrower at 10 or 12% and paying the bank 4 to 7% and just take that spread on somebody else's money. And I always knew that I had a backup plan. If the borrower didn't pay, I'd be able to pay off that loan because that was important because it is a risk. And then last year in 2024, Patty Bain, who works with me now, she was my first employee. She was my most prolific borrower over the last 5 years or so. And last year we did $5 million together. So she flipped $5 million worth of homes and I loaned to her. And then when I added that to the other loans that I had done, I realized I had loaned out over $7 million just by myself with a little Excel spreadsheet. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I enjoyed it. I could either stop lending or I could ramp this thing up because I find it interesting. And I wasn't going to do it because I've never used anybody else's money other than I've helped my siblings a couple times. They've co-loaned with me. And I didn't want to take other people's money. Well, you have to, if you're going to scale up, you've got to be able to have investors, right? And use their money. And I always loved helping borrowers grow their wealth. And of course, I loved growing my own wealth. And I used some of my kids' inherited money and grew their wealth. And then one day I kind of had this epiphany that, wait a minute, there's a whole population I'm not serving. I think we're put on this earth to help people, right? And to serve people. And if you help enough people get what they need, you get everything you need or want. And I realized that I was not helping people invest their money. Like that there were people out there who needed a passive income, but didn't have any idea how to be a lender, how to find borrowers, how to do any of the paperwork or any of that. And so when I realized that, I thought, okay, I think maybe I'll grow this company, bring on an employee or two, and start taking investors so that I can help other people grow their wealth and create a legacy for their children. And once I flipped that narrative in my head, it's still very scary to take other people's money. And I'm very conservative about how I underwrite things and what I do. But once I decided to do that, it became clear that the right thing for me to do was to grow this company. And we weren't even trying to market too hard yet. Patty's, like I said, working with me. And we have Allie Murphy. You know Allie, I think maybe, Corona, do you know her? So Allie, we brought her on as a consultant to be our COO and chief marketing person. So she's trying to help us. But we told her, don't market too hard because I'm trying to sell a bunch of properties and move into a newly renovated home. I'm traveling all the time. I can't handle this. Well, we're very, very, very busy, even without much marketing. So we're probably on track to loan almost 13 million this year if all the ones in the pipeline get underwritten properly, maybe even more. That's just the ones that are in the pipeline right now. And it's beginning of August. So if that's the case, our goal was 8 million. If we hit 13 or more, we've way exceeded our goal. So, but we're trying to grow responsibly and sensibly. And what that means, though, is it's no longer just a little Excel spreadsheet. I have a very expensive software program on the mortgage office that I really like. I'm constantly adding modules to take care of new types of loans. We're talking to SEC attorneys to figure out how we can work with these investors in a way that doesn't violate any securities laws. So everything becomes more expensive when you decide to scale up. So you've got to make sure, my job right now is to make sure that the expenses don't outrun or overrun what we can potentially make to bring in income, because I've committed to Patty as an employee. I've committed to Allie to pay her as a consultant. I've committed to this software. I've committed to all these things. And so it's still a little scary, but I feel good that we're doing so much to help so many borrowers. We just did our first commercial loan, a $1.8 million loan on a light industrial property. That's a fun loan. That's really a fun loan. Getting ready to do 2 more commercial loans. So we mostly do fix and flips, new construction, and then smaller balanced commercial loans, $1 to $3 million commercial loans. So far. Right now, we're what we call balance sheet lenders, which means we hold all our notes. We keep them all and we service them all. Some people, as they grow, start selling off their notes to other people so they can keep churning their cash to put more notes on the street. Right now, we're not doing that. We're loaning and holding those notes. And then we get monthly interest payments and we pay our investors every month. There are a few loans that we defer, but only if the investor is willing to defer their interest as well. And usually what we're doing, instead of deferring, if the borrower can't cash flow, we're financing in the interest so that we hold it in reserve and make the monthly payments to the investors. And then the borrower pays that off at the end with interest on that interest, because we basically loaned them their interest payments as well. So we're trying to be flexible to work with borrowers in a way they need while still protecting our capital and our investors. And so every loan is a different little analysis. Well, what will work for the borrower? What works for our investor? What works for us? It makes it interesting to me. It's like estate planning. It's a puzzle. Every loan is a puzzle to figure out the best way to make it work for everybody.
Yes. So all of you people who call me and ask me about hard money loans or private loans or all the things, I'm not that person, but I know that Mary can point you in the direction or either sell you a loan. So
yeah,
Fair Oaks Funding.
Yeah.
Now, as an investor, if let's say somebody called me and said, hey, I got a really fat income tax check, or I just got a lawsuit settlement and I don't know what to do with this money, and could I point them in your direction to invest that money? How does that work?
Sure. Yeah. So what we do now is if someone's interested, they reach out to me, and my email is just marihart@fairoaksfunding.com. They reach out to me. I send them my calendar link. We jump on a Zoom call for 15, 30 minutes. I explain how we work and tell them they can decide if they want to invest with us or not. And when an opportunity comes up, we try to reach out to those investors that the loan parameters meet their needs. We're working right now with an SEC attorney to decide if we're only going to do accredited investors, because the securities laws are really dangerous. If you don't do it right, you can get in big trouble. And if we decide to do that, which we're leaning towards right now, it does knock some people out. But that means an accredited investor means you have a net worth of $1 million or more, not including your personal residence, or you have an income of $200,000 a year as a single person, or $300,000 a year as a married couple, with the anticipation that you'll have that same income or higher for the next 2 years. So it does knock some people out. We had not looked at that before, but before we have a fund, we're going to have to start paying more attention to that, so we're not in violation of any SEC rules by how we operate. So that's a work in progress, trying to figure it out. But I would just suggest that people, if they're interested, we're paying right now between 8 and 9%. We hope to raise that up to 10% annually as we grow our loan portfolio. But like a couple of my investors are my siblings, and they use their lines of credit. They pay 5.25% on their line of credit, but I'm paying them between 8.5% and 9%, and they're just keeping that spread off somebody else's money. So we just closed a loan. My sister was in it 50% with me, and she was like, "Oh, I think I made like $500 over 90 days." I said, "Actually, you made about $1,800 over 90 days using someone else's money. That's an infinite return. That's $566 a month, and you didn't have a dime in it. So you just use it off somebody else's money. She had a little bit of risk. If I didn't pay her, she still had to pay, her loan, her line of credit. But, we only take first lien positions. We underwrite pretty conservatively. So she's done 3 or 4 of those with me, and she loves it because she just gets a check every month.
Now, I can tell you with 1,000,000% certainty, there is not a bank on this planet paying that kind of interest. So if your money is just sitting there, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. And so we're this large commercial loan. We actually have myself and 3 other investors. And I just sent the first checks to people, just interim interest, not even a full month, like 20 days. And I think one woman got over a $3,000 check, $3,200 or something she's going to get, I don't know, $3,600 a month or something. She's thrilled. It's nothing. She sold a business. She had a bunch of cash sitting there, had no idea how to invest it. She's not an investor. She was a former law client of mine. She saw on Facebook that I was lending, and she called me up and said, "Can I give you $500,000? I'm like, "Sure." So she's thrilled. She's getting 8.5%. She said, "Oh my God, I'm so happy." So it works for us. We just take a little spread off the interest and we keep the points, and that pays our operating costs, pays for my employees, pays for the software, pays for my time to do all the underwriting. And she's thrilled because she would have no idea how to do it. And my siblings are thrilled because they don't want to go find loans and vet loans. It's not in their skill set. They do other things,
Right.
So it works out well for the person who wants to just be passive and get those types of returns.
So all of you who have seen my shift in the last year and a half, when people are talking about they want to invest in real estate, but they don't really know how or what avenue, and I'm steering people away from the traditional rental properties. This is why, because I learned so much from that 4-day retreat with Mary and Wendy. I had no idea all of this existed. And one thing that they say often, you don't have to deal with tenants, toilets, and taxes.
Yeah, I love it. We don't have the tax breaks with lending that we do with rental property, but we also don't have tenants, toilets, or termites unless you have to take a property back. And luckily for me, in 22 years, I've never had to foreclose on anybody. I've had to threaten it twice, and I got paid off just fine. And I've never had to foreclose. But if I did, I would take it back. I'd probably make more money if I took it back and then sold it. But I think it's a great way to earn a passive income if you're interested. And if you're interested in being a private lender yourself, do you mind if I give a shameless plug for my Private Lending Institute? So Wendy, my partner in the Sweetheart Women in Real Estate Mastermind is Wendy Sweet, and she's been a hard money lender for over 20 years. And she and I this year, for the first time, are putting together a 3-day intensive private lending institute in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We've rented a big 25-bedroom house, and we'll all stay there together. It's open to men and women. Everybody has their own bedroom and bathroom. And we're going to spend 3 days learning everything about private lending. Wendy and I are teaching from A to Z in private lending, and then we'll be networking with 20 some other private lenders or want to be private lenders. So it's going to be a great time. If you're interested, you can reach out to me, Mary Hart at fairoaksfunding.com, and I can send you information. It's October 2nd through the 6th on the Outer Banks, which is the beach in North Carolina. Tuition for that is $2,950, but that includes your lodging, all your meals and beverages, and probably some swag, and of course the 3 days worth of learning and a manual, printed manual. So if you want to bring a spouse, it's an additional $750 just for the food and stuff for your spouse.
Man, this is okay. I'm trying to make sure I put this in the chats. Mary Hart. I need a moderator.
Yeah, you do. You need somebody to help you with this for sure.
Funding.com. Okay, that is awesome, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. And it's going to be awesome, top notch, and I can assure you, this is not like the vast majority of masterminds, let me do the air quotes out there. It's not breadcrumbs. You are going to get a full smorgasbord. You're going to get it all. You will feel like you're drinking from the fire hydrant. I'm telling you, they are going to give you like that price, that is value on value on
Yeah,
that.
we're not really doing it to make a lot of money. In fact, we'll be lucky if we make any money. We're just trying to educate people and help people grow their wealth and be better stewards of their money, So that's what we're trying. And the same thing with the Sweetheart Women in Real Estate Mastermind, which is for women only. That's the week before, September 28th to October 2nd. We've got 4 days there, and then we have a few spots left in both of those events. So reach out to me if you're interested. That is a mastermind where I met Karana, and we literally people get up in front of the room and talk about what their needs are and their challenges and what's going great for them.
There.
And you just all hangs out, and it's all under a non-disclosure agreement. And you've got 25 or 30 women as your personal board of directors, for that program to help you out. So, and then I think what I love about it is I've seen so many lasting friendships that have happened over the last 3 years from people who didn't know each other and who now they do deals together. They talk all the time. They help each other, and it really, Wendy and I love it. We just get so much out of it.
It was like a real sisterhood. Like, I'm telling you, I was so nervous. I went there and didn't know a soul. And you did
great. You did great. And so many people I've met so many great people through that. I love it. So if you're interested, reach out to me and I can give you information about that. That's $2,400 for the 3 or 4 days. So a little less expensive.
Yes. Okay. Now we have covered so many things. Is there anything else that you have coming up? Do you have any other programs that you are marketing right now, or anything else?
No, just Fair Oaks Funding and the Sweetheart Mastermind stuff. I'm speaking again for Jim Ingersoll at his Raising Capital event in Dallas in October. So I'm talking about scaling a lending business. So that will be an interesting talk. And I think I'm speaking on a cruise in January for I don't know what I'm talking about yet. I'm speaking next week, the 21st of August for Vina Jones-Cox and one of her Ohio real estate investment groups on due diligence. And so just various talks coming up, but that's about it.
That's something that you just stimulated a memory. Can you touch, before we go, on the importance of due diligence when going through a real estate transaction? Some of the things that people need to look for.
So yes, and this will be a 30,000 foot view because literally I give these talks for like 2 hours at a time, at least, and that's not even getting it all in. But when you're doing anything, any type of deal, due diligence is critical. Underwriting, due diligence, whatever you want to call it. And it's not just like if you're buying a house, you're the buyer, you got to vet the property, but you might have to vet the seller, make sure it's okay. They really own the house, right? Anything you're doing, I think there are at least 3 things you have to vet, which is the property itself, the people involved, and the paperwork, right? So if I'm doing a loan, not only do I vet the borrower and the property and all the loan documents to make sure everything's correct, but I think the borrower should be vetting me as the lender. Right? I mean, they need to check into me. Do I have bankruptcies? Do I have fraud? No, I don't, by the way. I'm pretty clean as a whistle. But I think everybody should vet the other party. If you're a flipper, you need to vet your contractors. If you're a contractor, you need to vet the flipper. Does the flipper pay? Does the flipper communicate? Does the contractor communicate? Right? If you're if you're going into a partnership with someone, boy, there's a lot of vetting there. You got to make sure you know who you're getting into bed with. And it's like a marriage, right? So you got to make sure you know who your partners are, and need to make sure that you have the paperwork that's right, that you can examine the books, that you have some control. There's just due diligence is probably the most important thing, because sometimes the best deal you can ever do is the one you don't do, because your due diligence says run for the hills and do not do this deal. And almost every problem I've seen somebody get into in a real estate deal could have been avoided had they just asked the right questions and paid attention. But sometimes people don't want to ask questions if they think it's going to make them look stupid, which it's not, by the way. If you have a question, it's not a dumb question. Any question that you have is not dumb. Sometimes they don't want people to know they don't know the answer, so they don't want to ask it. Sometimes they don't want to be seen as nosy. Oh, I can't ask that. I can't ask them for their tax returns if they're going to be my partner. Well, you better, because have they filed the returns? Do they have IRS liens against them? You better know that, because you're potentially liable for anything you do with them. So don't be afraid to ask questions, ask hard questions. And if someone balks, they're not the people you want to do business with, because business people understand that these are legitimate questions. We all have not only the right, but the responsibility to protect ourselves and protect those people with whom we invest. And so I think it's you have to ask the questions and do the due diligence, right? Like there are people who have bought notes on property, and they find out after they've bought the note that the house burned down 3 years ago. Well, I did a search. I saw it on Zillow 3 or 4 years ago. Great, but did you have anybody drive by the property? Like when I buy notes, I literally call a real estate agent if it's in a town I can't get to quickly, and I call them and say, "Hey, let me throw you $100 to go drive by this property, take pictures of it for me, and make sure it's still standing."
Yes.
That's $100.
Yes.
I pay them 50, whatever. To me, that's worth it. If you Google Earth it, make sure the date stamp on the Google Earth is up to date. You could get a Google Earth picture and say, "Oh, that I see it. It's a beautiful house. Google Earth." Yeah, that was taken 2 years ago. You have to pay attention. I know lenders who, one guy was trying to get a loan from a hard money lender, but he had like 30 infractions for seatbelt violations. And the lender said, "Sorry, everything else is great, but we're not going to loan to you because of your seatbelt infractions." He's like, "Well, that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not I'll pay you." And the lender said, "Well, yeah, it does, because you obviously don't think you need to follow any rules, and we have rules. So you're a rule breaker. I'm not going to loan to you." So when we ask questions of borrowers, it always feels uncomfortable to say, "Well, this or that, or I need to know this." But I'm protecting investors. I'm actually sometimes protecting the borrower if I'm asking questions about a deal, because I've talked borrowers out of doing deals, even though I've lost money. I would have always made the money because I get paid first. But we're like, Patty and I are like, "This deal is too skinny for you. Or you don't even have HVACs in this scope of work. Go back to your contractor." And they find out that when they add in the things that were missing and they didn't know were missing, that they were upside down. They were never going to make a profit, or they're going to make $5,000 if they were lucky. So we've helped people walk away from deals. And Patty is great at that because she is a licensed contractor. And so she really vets scopes of work with borrowers and helps new borrowers particularly to see if there's a problem. But all of that is part of the due diligence. So sometimes it's not just protecting us, it's protecting the other party. Even though we would have made money, if they lose on their first loan, they're not maybe going to stay in real estate. And we don't want to do one loan with them. We want to do 100 loans with them.
Right.
So we're trying to help them avoid mistakes, because sometimes we get excited about a project and, people get blind and don't realize there's something missing. So, due diligence is very important for everybody.
For sure. I so appreciate you and all of your wisdom and the nuggets you dropped here today. I am going to clip this up. I'm going to be sending you some clips so that because you drop some real bars.
Well, and you probably figured out, you asked me one question and I go off forever because there's so much up here that just wants to come out and help people,
Oh, so I love it.
I went too long.
I love it. I thank you so very much. And look, I found my.
Oh, you found your bubbles. Yay.
I knew they were right here on my love seat. I knew it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Yes, it has. And ladies and gentlemen, I didn't say it all day, but I want to make sure that you are subscribing to the YouTube channel, Blowing Bubbles Podcast. Make sure you are liking the content. Go watch up all the videos. Just watch them. There's some great conversations on there. Next week, the topic is AI or die. Woo! And I wanted to be dramatic with it because when I tell you there are some major things that people are just not really paying attention to. So I want to make sure that people, I fell down the rabbit hole. I've had my head in the AI sand the last 3 weeks. So it's really exciting. But that's our topic next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and share, and follow Mary Hart. And if you have any lending questions, you're trying to invest or you're trying to borrow, Mary Hart at fairoaksfunding.com. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. See you next week. Bye.
Have a good evening.